Welcome in episode number 3 of the Sweaty Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Justin, Braden, and Micah are here today, and so is Mr. Zach to chop it up and talk some football. You guys ready?
Let's get it.
All right, let's jump right in. First news, I'm going to toss to Mr. Zach Baker on this one, the resident 49ers fan, to talk about the fantastic news of Bill Belichick getting I couldn't even get it out. I couldn't even get it out. Bill Belichick got engaged today, but that's not the news we're going to talk about. Brock Purdy, 5-year, $265 million deal. Little fun fact before Zach takes over, it's $101 a minute.
Mind blowing. I definitely think the odds of Brock Purdy getting a $50 million contract after being the last pick in the draft are about the same as a 70-year-old man marrying a 20-year-old model. But you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give the props to Brock on this one. I think that the Bills side is a little on the creepier side. Shout out Brock Purdy, though. 4 years, 53 or 5 years, $53 million APY is phenomenal. I am a 49ers fan, so you do get to hear this through the lens of a happy 49ers fan. I think it was not an overpay. It easily could have been in the high 50s, maybe 60s if we let him hit the market next year. But I do think that the number being above 50 definitely inspires some confidence in what they believe Brock Purdy is for the future of the franchise. They do believe that he is a win because of quarterback, not just a win with quarterback, which is huge. It's something that 49ers fans have been saying for a long time, most of them maybe a little delusionally, myself included. But it is a huge vote of confidence from the franchise. Really, really exciting as a Niners fan and a Brock Purdy dynasty owner. Braden, what do you think?
Pretty intrigued by the deal. It feels like he almost took a pay cut to help the team contend by pushing his chips in this year rather than waiting for next year to test the market. I mean, I look at some of the other annual contracts near his value, and it's Tua. Tua's at 53 for this year. And it's if you ask me who I'm starting my team with, Tua or Brock, I'm probably leaning Brock pretty clearly. Micah, what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting because Braden and I are both Seahawks fans. But we've told Zach before that we think Brock's a great quarterback. And so I agree. I think this was just Sam for him buying in as early as possible and believing in their guy. And the number did surprise me at all. I think it was a great number.
I think unfortunately for Brock Purdy, he doesn't have Jerry Jones on the other side of the table. He has John Lynch, actually competent GM, so I don't think he was going to touch the 60 million. And next piece of news, Nick Sirianni, he got a multi-year extension. It's pretty crazy roller coaster. He's already been to two Super Bowls, won one last year. Um, they were they were wanting him out. There was partway through the year where the Eagles fans were they were booing him. He was getting into arguments with fans mid-game. It was pretty crazy. And then he took him to the Super Bowl and obviously gets an extension. So it's just continuity for the Eagles. Not a whole lot changing. Well, I guess it would be a good time to talk about it right now. The owners are voting on tomorrow if they're going to ban the tush push. So, I mean, there might be a little bit changing for the Eagles, but Sirianni's still at the helm, and I think they're going to be a really good team in 25.
Yeah, absolutely. I was loud and wrong about Sirianni for a long time. I was a doubter. I did not think that he was a great football coach. But I do think that while you can, and I still may, but you can make the argument about what he may do in a situation where he doesn't have one of the best front offices in the league and he doesn't have just an absolutely loaded roster. But you can't argue with the resume. You can never look at a coach who has won a Super Bowl and been to another one and say, he doesn't deserve a long-term extension. I think he's a perfect personality for Philadelphia. I think you need a very specific coach to be able to kind of handle all the personalities there. The big job, the big role it is to coach in that city. I think he fills the shoes. I think it's very well deserved.
Yeah, I would trail that by saying there's just not many coaches in the NFL who have done what he's done. I mean, we talk about guys who get on the hot seat at the position and overcome the adversity, make it to the Super Bowl in the NFC Championship, winning by three scores against a red hot Commanders team. I know it was a divisional matchup, but right from the gate, the Saquon long yard touchdown. I mean, they set the precedent pretty quick. And I mean, you look at their offseason moves, their draft, they killed it by waiting, sitting patient at 32, still getting John Campbell, absolute steal. And it felt like every pick they made, it was like, man, how did they get that guy? Man, how did they get that guy? So I feel like it's pretty deserving. Not many guys can do what Nick has done.
Yeah, I would agree. At the beginning of last season, it felt like almost automatically people were like, Nick Sirianni's on the hot seat. He should be fired. And I think we were all allowed to have that feeling of like, all right, I'll think about that. But then almost immediately be like, that's ridiculous. He is exactly the right head coach for a town like Philly. And you could say what you want about like, yeah, he may not have the best front office or anything like that going forward. There's a lot of factors that go into this team's success this last year. But let's not forget, they almost won that Super Bowl against Kansas City. It was a fight till the end. And I just feel like casuals sort of forgot about his performance as a head coach through that entire year. So yeah, obviously the extension is, I think, a really good one, well worth it.
I would love
Yeah,
to add that I think that there probably are. I'm gonna keep a little bit of my hot takes on Sirianni. I don't want to vault him into any top five conversations. I'm not really all in on the top 10 conversations yet, but I do. I think he's earned it. I think he deserves it. I think the situation is phenomenal. I think that there are a lot of coaches in the league that could, from a schematic standpoint, bring that roster, that front office to a couple of Super Bowls. But not to take anything away from Sirianni. Very well deserved.
I think part of it is probably just he's not the sexy name that like Ben Johnson is. When you see Ben Johnson coming in, you're like, man, this guy can scheme things up. Nobody says, oh, Sirianni's going to scheme things up, but he definitely plays off the Philly culture very well.
Yeah.
Um, NFL players, according to the owners of the NFL, are going to be allowed to play in the 2028 Olympics, which means the US is going to win going away. It's not really going to be close, and it's just going to kind of be just guys going out that don't get to play together usually and just toasting dudes. I think it's going to be a lot of fun just to watch all of your favorite players together on one field. Um, it's kind of like playing fantasy football. You just take all the best players in the league, throw them together on a team, and be like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll feel a lot like the Pro Bowl, but something I actually might want to watch.
I think it's interesting you bring up the Pro Bowl. That was where I was going to go. Is like where does this put the Pro Bowl audience if that even exists? I mean, how much do the viewers go down for the Pro Bowl, and how many people are going to tune in? I mean, we've seen the social media posts of who's gonna be eligible, like who's gonna play. I think it's going to be really intriguing. I think we all would vote either Lamar, Josh are going to take the quarterback spot. But man, like who's going to fill those skill positions? It's going to be really intriguing to see.
I would agree. I just am not excited for it to be in Los Angeles, California, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. I think everybody would like to see maybe Joe Burrow throw to Justin Jefferson again. Um, so there was a pretty big story that came out this week about Caleb Williams. Seth Wickersham is writing a book that's coming out in September, and he basically said Caleb didn't want to go to the Bears. His family didn't want him to go to the Bears. He talked to lawyers to try to get around going to the Bears. He debated going to the USFL to get out of going to the Bears. And then also another story came out about Shane Waldron last week that Caleb was not given any guidance. Shane would just kind of let him watch film and never did anything. How he got a job after being on the Seahawks and then going to the Bears, I don't know how. Anyways, I don't really know what they were doing. It was obviously a dumpster fire. Caleb made it through the year, and I mean it's all looking up for Caleb, but that first year, man, I mean that was absolutely brutal.
Yeah, man, it's really hard for me as a 49ers fan to see the Shane Waldron really getting dragged because, as someone who got to play him twice a year, massive fan of him, just really like the guy in general. But no, in all honesty, I don't love the idea of a team ducking the first overall pick. I think it comes with the territory. If you're going to be picked in that range, you're going to go to a bad franchise. You're going to go to a place that may not be able to support you very well. I mean, Trevor Lawrence can attest to that for sure. Don't love it, but I get it. There's nothing I can say about what I would do in that position. Nobody wanted to go to the Bears. The Bears have been considered kind of a poverty franchise for a while. And shout out to him for being able to say, "Hey, I don't want to go here," and still Granted, it's not all him. Like, we're very excited about Ben Johnson. We're very excited about what the roster construction has looked like. But I think it all centers around him. I don't think Ben Johnson's there if Caleb Williams isn't on that roster. I think that shout out to him for turning it around, for saying, hey, for recognizing this is a bad situation and still being able to lift it to, third offseason in a row being offseason winners. But yeah,
I'm pretty intrigued on the situation to see what comes out in Seth's book. I mean, you can't, again, like, no, I don't think anybody's blaming Caleb for wondering. When you're a kid and you're growing up playing football, the Bears are probably not in the top 31 teams that you want to play for. But I just think about whoever his agent is. I'm not familiar with Caleb's agent, but man, they deserve a raise, because for him to be able to buy into what Ryan Poles and the entire Bears organization has done from last year to here, where we're at, man, every weapon in that offense is a must buy.
A little fun fact for you. He does not have a traditional agent. He's represented by a team of advisors, including his father.
Shout out, Pops.
Yeah, this news was really interesting to me because I think it speaks to Caleb's leadership capabilities, to the fact that we did not know any of this at all last season, right? Every time it was mentioned that, the Bears were probably going to choose Caleb first overall, anytime Caleb was on camera, anytime Caleb talked to media about it, it was all smiles. It was, I'm excited. I believe in this franchise. I can't wait. I'm thankful for the opportunity, right? And even through stuff like we had to meet with Shane Waldron and tell him to knock it off and get it together, it was always professional. Even in moments of frustration on the sidelines, he was still listening to some of those veterans like Keenan Allen. It really speaks to the future of his leadership capabilities, I think. And for him to be able to feel comfortable enough to come out now and say, like, this is how I was feeling, again, shows the growth that this franchise is going towards. And I think it's going to be a really exciting team to watch this season.
I agree with that. So they just signed Joe Tooney, the guard that came over from Kansas City, to a 2-year, $35 million deal. It's not a super big surprise they signed him in the offseason, so it's good to extend him. He's older, so you don't think he has too much time left, but at least get a couple good years, build up Caleb's confidence. I think that could do a lot. And if you're paying $35 million to get Caleb confident and back feeling like Caleb Williams on a football field again, I think that's $35 million. It's pretty well spent.
absolutely. You'll hear me say it a few times this offseason because we have a lot of situations where it's prevalent. But the most valuable thing in all of sports is a rookie quarter, or is a top tier quarterback on a rookie contract. They're maximizing it. They are pushing chips in. They're doing the right thing. I believe in what they are building in Chicago.
Enough said.
All right. Lastly, this news is really only relevant if you are a Marvin Harrison Dynasty owner, but he is looking jacked. I'm gonna put a picture up on the screen of him. He's put on weight, getting the offseason hype going. Top 10 receiver in 25 question mark. That might be a little
Big
bit
question
overhyped,
mark.
but yeah. Anyways, so that's just kind of minor news. Nothing really to report there. So we are going to transition now into our favorite season-long bets. The NFL schedule came out last week, and so all the bets are coming out the season long, the win, over-unders, the awards. So we are going to go over some of our favorites that we've seen so far. Braden, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I'd love to. I want to give my honorable mention. I was looking into MVP odds, and I feel like Justin Herbert at 18-1 is one to highlight. It's not the route I went. It was a last minute change, but 18-1 off a guy who just had 2 interceptions. Was 4 interceptions in a playoff game away from going to another playoff game. You talk about a Jim Harbaugh led team, top 10 coach, top 10 quarterback. You buy into that situation a lot, and 18-1 felt like steel. The direction I'm going to go is a little bit gross. Everybody put on your clown mask with me really quick. I'm going to be going to a 2-leg parlay at plus 975. Both the Raiders and the Seahawks to make the playoffs. I look at the NFC West schedule. Both San Fran and Seattle have 2 top 10 easiest schedules based off record last year. This is a 10-win Seattle team and I think about what they did with their offseason, their draft, their free agency moves. They addressed some holes. They picked up value and getting away of some top heavy contracts. You bring in a competent coordinator in Kubiak. I'm really excited to see what they do. They address the O line. Now it all kind of comes down to the dreaded Sam Darnold conversation. But I do think that this is just a team that's going to be in a lot of one score games. Clint Kubiak in New Orleans last year was the number one red zone offense and goal to go situations. And I just think that when it comes down to one score games, I'm taking a team that I trust to shut down the other team's offense and a team to score in big capitalizing moments. When I look at the Raiders, it's kind of simple for me. I'm a Pete Carroll believer. I think that this team really addressed some holes. They're going to be able to move the chains a lot with Genty. Teams are going to have to face the box question of how many am I going to put in the box against Genty. They addressed a couple offensive line holes with their NFL draft and Caleb Rodgers and Charles Grant. I'm pretty excited to see where they go, and I think they play the division hard. One of the areas I wanted to highlight, one of Pete's strengths when he runs the defense is getting after the quarterback with only rushing four. You look at that roster and you say, that is a front seven that will be able to do it, just sending four. As elite defenses as Pete Carroll had in Seattle, he never had a Max Crosby in the front seven. And I just am really excited to see that. So my bet of the offseason is going to be both Seattle and the Raiders to finish making the playoffs.
And you can't forget, even if Sam Darnold sucks, you got Jalen Milroe, the savior of the Seattle Seahawks, the guy that's going to come in and be a franchise quarterback. He might even beat Sam out in
Oh,
camp. If you ask Mr. Ledford, if you ask Braden's dad, Jalen Milroe might be pushing Sam Darnold in camp. You never know.
You know what they say, if you have two quarterbacks.
This is true.
I, uh,
I
I can absolutely co-sign the Raiders side of the bet. Now, there's a lot of bias for me fading the Seattle side of it. I think that a lot of my like for the Raiders side comes from the fact that it's plus 330. I think that you mentioned earlier that betting on a top 10 coach and a top 10 quarterback is a recipe for success. Those are not those are not teams that often miss the playoffs. I think a lot of people would take great offense to me saying that Geno Smith is a top 10 quarterback, but I know that it's not that hot of a take. I think there's a lot of people who agree with the fact that he is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. He's very experienced, and I think that there's a world where the offensive infrastructure this year is better than anything he had while he was in Seattle. I think Seattle never had a Genty in the room. You can argue whether they had a Bowers in the room because Bowers, I think, is probably the best tight end in football. The weapons are there. The line is much better than anything he ever dealt with in Seattle. I'm really excited about the Raiders this year.
I would like to chime in. I definitely I want to tail that. I think that a Chip Kelly led offense is all about timing and pace, and I think this offense is really built to succeed with timing and pace. Again, the offensive line is significantly better than what Gino had in Seattle, and I'm willing to bet a Chip Kelly coming off a national championship offense is going to function off of timing and pace. And my only question with that offense is a guy to stretch the field. We haven't really seen Trey Tucker break out a lot. I know they're what was it, fourth round draft pick and Thornton. We'll have to see the impact he makes, but I'm really excited to see this team move the chains, win a lot of close score games. Pete Carroll only missed the playoffs twice in Seattle in what, 13 years? So I'm willing to take that bet.
And I don't know about Bowers. He's no Farrell Brown. Okay.
uh
Pharaoh Brown, is he a hockey player or?
Sounds like it. Might as well be.
uh,
that's
Justin, you want
insane.
to jump into yours? Yours is exciting as well.
Sure, I'd love to. Mine is we talked about it a lot in the news with Caleb Williams, but mine is Caleb Williams over 35, 50 passing yards is plus 110 on DraftKings. Over 4,000 yards is plus 275 if you want to get a little bit spicy. If you think Chicago is going to finally get their first 4,000-yard passer. But I mean, last year with the Eberflus Waldron debacle, he had 35-41. So to say adding Ben Johnson and adding Colson Loveland and Luther Burden, he's not going to go up more than 9 yards. I think that's just absurd. And so to get plus money on that, I mean, that's not a plus 900 parlay like Braden gave out, but I mean, plus 110, you basically, in my opinion, have a free bet outside of injury to just double your money. If you put in $100, you win 220 or 210. Sorry, I can't do math. Um, I mean, that seems like a pretty free bet outside of injury to me.
I really like it. I'm very bullish on that offense. I did find when I was researching that if you bet Caleb Williams to lead the league in passing, you can actually get that at plus 3,500 or 35 to 1. I think that's an angle that if I was going to play a Caleb Williams passing prop, it would probably look like that. I look at the way that the running back situation is not strong at all in Chicago, and their RB1 Ben Johnson has already, maybe it wasn't Ben, but DeAndre Swift has already been kicked out of a Ben Johnson offense before. We talk about the screen game often being used as an extension of the run game, and we look at how DJ Moore and Luther Burden are just completely optimized to do that. I think we could see this team throw the ball close to 40 times a game. And if we think the efficiency is there to match, I don't think it's hard to tell the story about how that ends up happening. And at 35 to 1, you only need that bet to hit about 3% of the time for it to be profitable. I actually really like that angle a lot as well.
Fun fact for you, DeAndre Swift in his last year with Detroit in 2022, in 14 games, he had 99 carries, which is absurdly low for a starting running back. He basically got beat out. That was the year that was Jamal Williams went absolutely insane and got like 25 touchdowns and then just went irrelevant the next year. So yeah, I think honestly a bet on Roshan Johnson wouldn't be a bad thing. I think even outside
I
of
like
being a
that.
handcuff, I think he could be a really good player. Trevor, cover your ears. He might not even be listening to this. I have no idea. But he's not gonna like this. He was on Swift all off season. Um,
I'm
yeah.
okay with Swift. Don't get me wrong. I think that Swift is in an amazing position this year. I think that while I don't like Swift as a running back, but I do really like him as an athlete. There is absolutely a dynamic aspect of what DeAndre Swift brings to an offense. I am buying DeAndre Swift right now. Now you're probably using him as a 1 year rental. You are probably not going to get a second productive year out of DeAndre Swift. But the RB1 in a Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, loaded offense. That is valuable. He may not get the red zone
Sure.
work. He may not get to 300 carries, but he will get dump offs. He will get screens. He will get some of those wide zone concepts designed to get him in space. I think he will have some spike weeks for sure. I would buy him if you're a contender. I'd be buying.
Yeah, in his standard PPR, I'd say he's a safe 15 point a week player. But, you know, I don't know that he'll have too many games where he's like, oh, DeAndre Swift has 25 points. It's incredible. You know what I mean?
I think it's safe to say we lost Trevor about 13 minutes and counting ago when Trevor Lawrence's name got brought up. So I think we're safe right now, fellas. But what I will say is when it comes to the 3,500 passing line or 4,000, I would rather go the upside play. And I'm someone that's pretty firm believing that the offense is going to come out with a few struggles. But man, when that offense gets rolling, the thing I'm really intrigued about is I'm not going to go any of the touchdown lines for any of these guys because we don't really know. We saw the Lions offense function a lot 2 years ago through Laporta in the red zone, and last year a lot through Amon Ra and utilizing the running backs. We don't really have a gauge of what that's going to be in Chicago.
Changes
But
every year.
if I was willing to bet, I'd be going the 4K at plus 275. I think a number like that means a lot to a franchise when it comes to they have never had that. Year one of Ben Johnson, the expectation is excellence. They're going to play divisions hard. There's a reason why a guy like Ben Johnson, maybe one of the best coaching candidates we've seen in a long time, go to a division rival. I'm really intrigued to see that, and I would be willing to bet the 4,000.
And with his stipulations too. I mean, he was not just going to go to any team. He made that very clear. So the fact that he dove in headfirst to Chicago, I agree. I think plus 4,000 plus yards is a great bet.
Great take.
Yeah, I think to summarize, we don't really know who the weapon is that's going to benefit. It might
Yeah,
change on any given week,
yeah,
but the real ultimate beneficiary is Caleb. I mean, if he throws 3 touchdowns and Rome doesn't get any that week, Caleb still threw 3 touchdowns. So
yeah.
he's the ultimate beneficiary there, and that's kind of what I was banking on with those lines. Zach, you want to give us yours?
You're welcome.
Yes, I would. I'm very excited about mine. I will be playing this. I'll probably be putting a unit at least on this. I'm actually doing a just one bet, but it is 17-1 right now on FanDuel as of taping. This is Tuesday night, the 20th. So I like betting division exactas. So trying to find angles in which if a few things go wrong you can predict the or a few things go right you can predict the exact outcome of a division. And an area that I like an area that I'm intrigued to do that this year is in the AFC South. I think that it is pretty I think there's I think it's consensus that the Texans are far and away the favorite in this division. I want to fade that a little bit. I believe that Trevor Lawrence with Liam Cohen is I really like their odds against a CJ Stroud led team with an offensive coordinator we haven't seen yet, especially with the hits that they have taken on the offensive line this offseason. We saw it be a very poor offensive line last year, and it got worse. Losing Laramie Tunsil, while he did have penalty concerns and character concerns last year, he's still, we saw how much the Commanders paid for him. He is still a stud at left tackle. I do not think they improved on the offensive line. I think that we could see the struggles that they faced last year get worse. And it's easy to see a team with a hot shot head coach coming in that really knows how to utilize his run game and his weapons, who added one of the best wide receiver weapons we've seen over the past few years. It's very easy for me to see how it's possible the Jaguars usurp the Texans at the top of that division. Now moving on to the bottom of that division, it is again consensus that the Titans and Colts should probably round out the back end of that. I would like to lean into the Titans possibly being better than the Colts this year. The Titans defense vastly overperformed their expectation last year. I think it's not hard to see a world where the defense is much better in Tennessee than it is in Indianapolis. I think that you have in Indianapolis a coach on the hot seat, a quarterback situation that no team envies. We talk about if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. You have zero quarterbacks in Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones are not the answer. And I just look at the offensive infrastructure in Tennessee. If Cam Ward could hit the ground running at all with a coach that got a massive vote of confidence surviving the GM fire this offseason, it's not hard to see where if these teams are both kind of existing in the maybe 6 to 8 win range, you could definitely see some one game variance swing who finishes in that spot. So to recap, if you have the Jaguars, then the Texans, then the Titans, and then the Colts in that division, that pays out 17-1 on FanDuel right now. And I think it's a wonderful bet.
Yeah,
solid all around. I think it's solid all around.
I'm pretty intrigued in this bet too. I would lean the Jaguars. I think when it comes down to playing a division rival and you've got Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker off the edge to a team in the Texans that just traded away their top edge, I lean that favor. The Jaguars, man, they're just built to take out the Texans. The more I look at it, zone run scheme, they've got guys to stretch the field. I think that the corners in Houston are a little bit concerning, but man, when you look at the other side, as this Jaguars defense, I'm taking the Jaguars defense over the Texans offense, even though CJ Stroud is just an absolute stud. When it comes to the bottom of the division, I don't feel like there's a lot to say. As a big Cam Ward fan, I'm pretty confident in this team's ability to stay in games. After we get through the first 4 to 5 games, I think this team's going to stay in games. They're going to run the ball well. We don't really know how they're going to stretch the field. We're going to see if either of these rookies, an Alik Ayaman or Chim, if either of these guys come out and can stretch the field, I'm going to probably lean that's my verdict as well.
Solid all around. I mean, with the logic between who's going to win the division, Jacksonville or Houston, I remember talking to both Brady and Zach about I think Houston's ability to be good next year is going to heavily depend on how they go about fixing their offensive line in the offseason. And I want to open it up. I don't really remember from the draft. Did Houston do much to draft for their offensive line during the draft this year?
Yeah, they did. They cooped up a second, third, and a fourth for Laramie Tunsil. Okay. And in a value standpoint, I'm going to take the second, third, and a fourth over Tunsil and having to extend him like the Commanders did. But for right now, this bet just comes down to this season. I'm going to take a team that's got to rush for the whole game and get after the quarterback pretty well, especially against CJ Stroud, who developed some habits of fading to the back of the pocket. I'm going to take the Jaguars pretty handedly.
And I agree that Liam Cohen is a great fit for Jacksonville. So that's exciting to watch too.
It looks like they took Arianti Irsi. I probably butchered that so bad. I don't know how to say that guy's name. They took him in the second round, tackle out of Minnesota. Um, took a bunch of receivers. I mean, they took the Iowa State
Yeah.
boys.
Yeah, that was a little surprising to me.
Yeah, so they didn't.
I mean, I guess with Tank Dell, but yeah, that was a little shocking because they took 2, right?
Yeah, they took both. They took
Yeah.
both Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins.
Mm.
Yeah, it was a little bit surprising that they went that route, but they obviously saw what happens when CJ Stroud doesn't have weapons
Yeah.
and said, we can't be doing that.
Yeah.
I do have faith in the new incoming offensive coordinator in Houston, but I don't think it's going to get out of the game clean, especially with your 2 new weapons being rookies. But Jaden and Noel, I do really like his prospects, and I like what they're going to bring to the offense. They're going to enable Nico to really take on a true dominant number 1. But when it comes to division record, how you're going to play your division, I'm going to fade the Texans here, especially at, what was it, 17 or 18 to 1?
17 to 1, yeah.
Pretty good bet. All right, we're going to take a break. Welcome back. We had got some Dynasty sells. So to piggyback off of the Texans talk that we just had, Mr. Braden is going to give us his Dynasty sell first.
Yeah. My dynasty sell is going to be Nico Collins. And when I say that, everyone's going to. Nico Collins is sleeper right now. His ADP is the 7th best wide receiver. And I look at some of the guys around him, and I would rather take shots on some other guys. Him's kind of being the reason, the direction of the team. A little bit iffy on how fast can this offense get out. You've added new pass catchers and both rookies from Iowa State. I'm just a little bit concerned. He's dealt with a hamstring injury each year that does tend to affect you a little bit. He was a year 3 breakout, which is pretty rare. And if you look at some of his games played, I mean, he's missing time each year. 14 games, 10 games, 15, 12. Nothing significant, but man, a wide receiver 7 finish at that, I'm going to fade it a little bit. I look at some of his career stats, and not this last year, but the year before, almost 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns, pretty impressive. I just trust that a new coordinator coming in is going to start to lean in a couple of the other directions, especially when we get to the red zone. I don't exactly know. We know Joe Mixon's the focal point when we get to the red zone. But I think the wide receivers brought into the room are going to complement Nico's skill set, but I think in a fantasy asset, I'm going to go with a couple of the other guys around him. And for that, the reason I would include him as a sell for me is I would be trying to get wide receiver 12 to 20 range and a pick with that of significant value for that reason. Some of the other guys around him are like Drake London, Malik Neighbors, and I'm just leaning in those directions rather than Nico, just because of the direction of this team is we don't know about the offense coordinator. We don't know his play calling ability. It's probably going to get better because Bobby Slowick was absolutely horrible last year. I look at CJ's numbers last year, 20 and 12. Again, he started to fade towards the back of the pocket, which anybody who knows ball knows that that's kind of something you fade away from. There were some bad scrambles, and I'm going to fade him a little bit comparatively to some of the guys at the top of the wide receiver class.
So according to Draft Sharks, that's what I'm looking at right now, the Superflex Dynasty ADP, Nico's sitting next. He's just behind Trey McBride. He's just ahead of Caleb. Would you rather have Nico or Caleb in a Superflex?
Yeah, I'm going Caleb pretty handedly. I think Caleb's the upside swing. There's some wide receivers that are going to put up 1,008 and probably aren't going to get talked about in the way that Nico is. I look at last year, a guy pretty close to that range. We're all going to cringe when I say his name, but Calvin Ridley was an 1,000-yard receiver, and there was a game where he dropped 4 touchdowns. I'm just not going to buy Nico's value. If I was a Nico owner, 26 going on 27 this year, hamstring injuries, where the direction of the team's going, I'm definitely selling, and Caleb definitely has the upside for me.
Then 5 spots below him, you got Saquon. Then 5 spots below that is Marv. So Marv is 10 spots below Nico. Would you rather Marv or Nico in Dynasty?
Marv for me. Marv for
Yeah,
me.
so I mean we're going down the list. And would you rather Devon Achan or Nico?
That's close for me. I think that's the running back value.
Arn.
I'm gonna probably lean Nico because again, Nico's career longs are in the 70s. He can do that any week, especially with weapons on the outside. I think the weeks that Nico wins, he's gonna win big. But I just think comparatively to some of the other guys, I think Nico might lose you a couple games because some of the other guys get the touchdowns, or we see Jaden Higgins in the power slot role draw a couple of the bigger plays rather than Nico on the outside.
So all those comparisons were to point out Devon Achan currently is the 309. So he's the number 33 overall player in Dynasty startups, and Nico is number 20. So the fact that Nico slightly gets the edge over Devon Achan, um, it's pretty crazy for a 13 spot difference. So an entire round in a Dynasty startup to have
Mhm.
be like, I don't know which guy I want. That's pretty crazy for a full round.
I lean a little bit of the other direction. I think that Nico Collins is extremely talented, but I love the process. I think that finding guys who you think you could tear down from, and it maybe feels like a little more of a lateral move, and you're still able to pick up some capital on top, whether that be picks or a young player. I think the process is really good. I'm not very high on the Texans this year. This may be the last time that Nico is in this range. He's valued. Keep Trade Cut has him as the wide receiver 8, sandwiched by Puka Nakua and Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think that those are guys that I can understand wanting one of them more than Nico. And if you can move a couple of tiers down and pick up something of value, that could look really smart in a year.
Agree with that. All right, I'll jump in. This is a player that since last year, actually going into last year, he was in the argument for the 101 in redraft. Um, 2 years ago, he almost had 2,000 yards as a receiver. Mr. Tyreek Hill. I mean, he was so close to breaking the all-time receiving record in a year, and then to go from that to, I mean, last year there's some pretty crazy stats on him. So he's never played less than 15 games in a season, except for one year out of his career so far. Um, but last year he went from the wide receiver 2 in PPR to the wide receiver 18. He had 123 targets, which was down from 171 the year before. Didn't break 1,000 yards last year and only had 6 touchdowns. And we don't really see 31-year-old wide receivers bounce back, and there's a lot of questions around the Dolphins right now. So it's kind of somebody that you want to get out on. I mean, really anything that you can get for Tyreek, I'd be taking. I think he's kind of just fallen off a cliff. I mean, the speed might help him around, but with Tua throwing him the ball, I mean, Tua is not at the stage of his career where he wants to hang in the pocket for 5 seconds and chuck it 50 yards down the field. If he hangs in the pocket for 5 seconds, I mean, we've seen what happens. He's laying on the ground convulsing. It's bad. I mean, he's he's pretty close to being out of the league if he gets too many more concussions. So he's not gonna. Anyways, the point is he's not gonna hang in the pocket and wait for Tyreek to burn his guy down the field. He's gonna check it down to Devon Achane or whoever's close to the ball. That ended up being Jonnu Smith was a big beneficiary of that style of offense last year. Um, he's currently the 606 in Sleeper Dynasty startups. So going in the sixth round, I mean, there's still some guys in the sixth round that are very solid contributors to your team. And I don't even know, like, kind of the argument for buying veterans is like, I'm going to get one last year out of them. Like, if you want to go get CMC to make one last good run at a championship, you can do that, but Tyreek doesn't even offer you that. I think he's going to be bad this year and pretty much irrelevant. And you look at some of these other big receivers like DeAndre Hopkins and Julio, like when they fall off hard. Like they're a perennial top 5, top 3 guy, and then when the end comes, they're just toast. So I would get out from Tyreek Hill while you can. I don't really know what you could get for him. I don't think Mr. Fiesler could offer me anything, and I would take him. So I don't really have good advice on as far as what I would try to sell him for, but I mean if you could get a dart throw of a rookie, maybe I don't I mean, I don't know how far down I'd go, but I'm not looking to acquire Tyreek, and I would sell him as quick as I could.
Looking at Keep Trade Cut, they have him as the wide receiver 38. Sandwiched between you have guys like Jaden Higgins, Mike Evans, Jerry Judy, Jaden Reed, Chris Godwin, and Trey Harris. Those are the three on each side of him. Did you hear anyone there that you would rather have Tyreek Hill than?
No.
And those are in the late 30s, early 40s of wide receivers. I can co-sign. It's about over for Tyreek Hill in my opinion.
I think the reason I'm out is more of the surrounding. I think that Tyreek as an athlete um is not going to necessarily fall off. I just think if we look at what it looks like when the Miami Dolphins offense has the wheels fall off. And nobody should be high on Tua. And man, the two guys behind him being Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers don't make you very excited. The one thing I think is I think we could see Tyreek make us eat our words a little bit early before Tua takes a hit is the way I'm leaning. The reason if I was a Tyreek Hill owner, I'm selling is more of the surrounding. But I mean, man, 31-year-old wide receivers don't really have a good track record. So
Yeah, it's hard when you can see the wheels start to come off on a team to be like, yeah, I want to put stock in those players, you know? Um, so I'm with you. I think Mr. Fiesler saying he wouldn't sell him for anything less than a first is crazy, but that's just me. He's probably gonna hate this entire podcast.
Well, that just means he's going to retire on his team, and that's fine. It is what it is.
Yeah, right. And sometimes that's you have to accept that, right?
Yeah.
Like I bought this character, this player character. I bought this player later on in their career, and I just am gonna accept that I'm gonna get the usage that I need from them, and if they fall off, they fall off. It happens, and sometimes you make a bad move and buy Debo Samuel, and the last year that he just had with Sanford, and it went really bad. So
get a load of this guy making mistakes like his actual dynasty team. Am I right? No, I'm just kidding. If I was in Mr. Fiesler's shoes, it's kind of you're not going to get value for him. So I'm holding him. If I'm mistaken, correct me please. But I mean, Tyreek Hill saw a dynasty championship, didn't he? Oh wait,
We didn't.
kind of rough. He's going to retire on Mr. Fiesler's team.
Yeah.
unless he
Right,
sells them
Zach.
forever.
I was gonna
Marv.
jump in. I was gonna jump in with a buy or a sell, but I feel like you should go and throw Mr. Feezer a bone, man. I think you should. I think you should jump in with your buy.
Okay, we'll make him feel a little bit better. Switching it up, got a buy of Lad McConkey. Now this is a buy high. He's already a great receiver. Everybody knows he's a great receiver. I already made a couple trade offers for him.
We all
Um,
have.
Raise
Yeah,
your
Sean-
hand if you've made multiple offers for Lad McConkey over the
Because
last.
you should
Yeah.
want him. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I mean he's 23 years old. No, sorry, he's 24 years old. Last year, his EPA was fourth in the league behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, McLaurin, and Jamar. I mean, he's going to be connected to Justin Herbert for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is his dude. He's always open. He always catches the ball. He's kind of like Keenan Allen on steroids at this point in his career, where like he's just always going to be where Herbert needs him to be. He's going to take the hits across the middle and come down with the ball. Trey Harris doesn't move me off of this pick at all. I think Justin Herbert is a good enough quarterback that you don't worry about a second
Yeah.
option coming in and stealing something away. I think Ladd is just that good where they can both eat in this offense. And like Zach said, he's looking at Justin Herbert MVP odds. I think part of the reason is, I mean, he's just a good quarterback. Everybody knows he's a great quarterback. And I think he could easily support Ladd and Trey Harris. And then if Trey Harris doesn't do anything and it's like last year where it was just Ladd's going to eat. And I don't want you guys to forget their one playoff game they had against Houston. Scored 34.7 fantasy points in full PPR, 9 catches for 197 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he's a stud. He's their number one, and he's going to be connected to Herbert for a really long time. So there you go, Mr. Fiesler. Um, Got to have you
Nice
have
work.
some good players on your team, even if you have Tyreek Hill, you have Lad McConkey to balance it out.
Lad McConkey is so awesome because you look at him and he's a small, mostly slot receiver, a white dude, and you don't really view him as like a bona fide number one. But a lot of what he did in year one proves that he can be precisely that. I'm a Trey Harris owner in Dynasty. I drafted him in the second round this year, and my hope is for him to be a good number two behind Lad McConkey. Lad McConkey is an amazing separator. He is amazing after the catch. And even for a smaller guy, like he's in the top 85th percentile, or he had an 85% success rate against press coverage, and played a lot of his snaps on the outside this year because they needed him to. He has excelled everywhere they've asked him to. Lad McConkey. I tried to buy him low quite a few times. I think that window's passed, and I'd still be okay buying him high. Absolute stud.
Yeah, to jump in, I mean, I get called a used car salesman anytime I try to go for him. Probably is because I am, and I offer not anywhere near what his value is. But yeah, what's not to like about Lad? Again, we talked about the top 10 quarterback, top 10 head coach pairing. You want the number one weapon in that. I think the thing we haven't touched on is the running game influence this year. You bring in Amari in, and as gross as he is, you bring in Najee Harris. These are two guys that are going to help move the chain in short yardage situations, keeps the offense on the field. Not that the running game was a what am I looking for? Not that the running game was a weakness last year, but I think we're going to see that be a strength this year, and all the more reason to want Lad on your dynasty team.
Yeah, I agree. Explosive player. I agree with what you're saying about the run game. It wasn't like a weakness last year necessarily, but more just vanilla. And then the potential for this running game on this team is set to explode. So, yeah, I think Vlad's a clear one. And I really agree with what you say, Justin, when you say, getting a talented guy like Trey into the offense alongside of him is with a QB like Justin Herbert, you don't worry about the usage. Between those two targets. It's actually why, as a CD owner, I was really happy to see Pickens go to the Cowboys because it's the same thing. With a QB like Dak, I'm not concerned about the usage between those two receivers. Ball knowledge.
Right. We can flip back over to the finish out the sells. I guess Mike has got one too, but Zach, you want to tell us why you're selling the most jacked wide receiver in the NFL, Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Me wanting to sell Marvin Harrison Jr. really comes down to a lot of what we talked about Nico Collins. I think that he is just about what could be peak value right now. And I don't think one of the reasons I chose him to sell here is because I don't think that that's consensus. I think people are still very excited about Marvin Harrison. I think that people still see a year two, maybe a year three breakout on the horizon for Marvin Harrison. We still see a massive ceiling with Marvin. And I think that people are still willing to pay for that. I still think there are plenty of markets where you could turn Marvin Harrison into Lad McConkey and a first round pick and be okay after 2 years with just the Marvin for Lad swap. I think that what we saw last year from Marvin Harrison Jr. was not the best utilization. They kind of forced him to be a sacrificial X more than maybe we wanted him to when we were drafting him in the second round of redraft last year. But I think that might just be more of what he's suited to do, especially in that Kyler Murray-led offense. The Robert Mays at the Athletic Football Show did a great piece on him this week and just kind of looked into his utilization, the kind of targets he was getting, the kind of routes he was running, and it's really easy to tell the story about how he is a wonderful X wide receiver who really can stretch the field and be great for your offense, but he's never really one of those top dynasty assets who is scoring 20 to 30 points on a week-to-week basis. He may be much better used to stretch the field, have some blow-up games now and then. But Kyler isn't the best quarterback to maximize him. The coaching staff is a little shaky there. We don't know how long they'll be coaching there. And I think it's very possible that this is just who Marvin is. He was really billed as more of a high floor than a high ceiling player coming out. He was billed as too good to fail. He was very sharp. He was very refined, probably because of the pedigree. And I just think it's very possible that you can sell a ceiling that doesn't exist right now with Marvin Harrison Jr.
I'm going to jump in on that and just touch on that. I agree a lot with what you're saying, Zach. And for my position in our league in Sweaty, that is 100% why I sold him. was getting those vibes that maybe he's just not what I want him to be. And so, Justin, that's why our trade made sense, because you believe in his future. And I wanted a guy like CD who could give me those immediate points.
Yeah, I got.
Justin, I might side with you a little bit here. I feel like, yes, we all know what he can be, but if Marvin comes out, like Zach was highlighting, and not the most ideal situation where we've seen the bumps in the road with Kyler, man, if he comes out and puts up 1,300 yards this year, I feel like, hey, if he can do it now, what happens if they bring in a guy who stretches the field? That now every route Marvin's running has to be taking the top off the defense or making the defense stretch the field. I'm still in on Marvin. I would still, as crazy as it feels to say it right now, knowing Marvin was 900 yards last year, I would take Marvin over Lad McConkey. I think that what Marvin can do is just stretch the field. He can maximize the targets he's going to get. I'm still in on Marvin.
That's tough.
It's
I don't
frustrating
know
to
which
watch.
one I'd take.
It's frustrating to watch Petzing just send him on streaks down the field. It's like you drafted this guy fourth overall, and you're gonna have your 5'9" quarterback back there, and send Marv down where Tyler can't see Marv that far down the field. I mean, there was a couple times during the NFL season where a play would circulate on Twitter after the game where it's like Marv is running wide open 50 yards down the field.
Yeah. Oh,
Tyler's
yeah.
just doing his little toddler run down the sideline, nowhere to be found.
It was frustrating. I think their coach is in the hot seat this year. He's on it.
100%.
I think those examples from last year are clear reasons as to why.
I'm not going to let my fellow short king Kyler Murray get dogged on a little bit too much here. I watched an interview a couple weeks ago of Kyler talking about Marvin's rookie year, and he talked about how after the game against Buffalo, Marvin pulled him aside and said, "Hey, I don't understand why the game's not slowing down. We see that rookie curve with most players." And the fact that Marvin came to Kyler saying the game feels too fast. I think we're going to see a level of the game slows down. There's not a lot of corners in the NFL that can guard a guy who separates like Marvin, who's got hands like Marvin, especially not size like Marvin. I'm still in on Marvin.
Right now, he's kind of Mitsubishi Marv. No, he's not quite Maserati Marv yet.
Minivan Marv.
Minivan Marv.
Awesome.
Moped
Mazda
Marv.
Marv.
There's so many ways.
Marv.
There's so many ways I can go, and I really hope it's going to be Maserati is his nickname on my team by the end of the year. Might be Minivan. I really hope not.
Yeah, it's
All right,
high risk,
okay.
high reward. That's one of the reasons why I had the opportunity to draft Marvin again and our other league, and I ended up deciding on Travis Hunter instead, and then Braden took Marvin immediately after me, and that was the right move.
Wow. I would not touch Travis Hunter before I touch Marv. That's
It's
crazy.
high risk, high
I
reward.
agree.
I think with both of them.
Yeah. Anyways. All right.
I'm not saying that I'm out on Marvin. Sorry, I don't mean to jump over you, but I'm not saying I'm all the way out on Marvin. I'm not saying that he can't have. I'm a little iffy on a 1,300-yard season, but I think it's absolutely within the range of outcomes. But what you can get right now for Marvin is a haul that reflects that he is going to do that. And I think that there are a lot of worlds in which he never really reaches that ceiling.
Can I move to my sell based off of that point?
Yeah.
Please do.
So, Zach, I'd like to piggyback off of what you can get for a player right now. And that's kind of why I want to talk about my sell, which is Breece Hall. I think Breece is really hard because I understand where people are coming from with the talent portion of the conversation. He's extremely talented. For me, I think talent-wise, he's not a top 10 back, but he floats right underneath there for me. I sent actually a list to Zach today of 10 backs who I think are more talented than Breece. And again, I think that's arguable. I think a lot of people would be like, no, dude, he's at like 5 or 6 or somewhere in there, and that's fine. The reason that I would sell him now is mostly what Zach said. You can get an absolute crazy haul for him, which is what I'm actually trying to do in one of our leagues right now. But the Jets are a criminal organization. We know that. I think Breece has showed us exactly what he can be on that team. That's just, again, that's a hot take. I think a lot of people will disagree with me on that. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
he's
and
torn his
he's torn his
ACL two
ACL two
times, and
times, and Braden
Also was
also
like,
was
man,
like, "Hey
here's
man,
a
here's a
list of
list of
great
great
running
running
backs who
backs
have
who have
torn their
torn their
ACL
ACL
twice
twice
and
and
are
are
awesome.
awesome." And
So
so
take
take
that
that
with
with
a
a
grain
grain
of
of
salt.
salt.
But
But
his
his
injury
injury
history
history
is
is
concerning.
concerning.
I
I
think
think
if
if
he
he
gets
gets
one
one
more
more
serious
serious
injury,
injury,
he's
he's
not
not
going
going
to
to
be
be
talked
talked
about
about
in
in
the
the
way
way
that
that
I
I
think
think
people
people
still
still
are
are
currently
currently
talking
talking
about
about
him.
him.
And
And
I
I
just
just
don't
don't
see
see
his
his
usage
usage
this
this
year
year
on
on
that
that
team
team
with
with
Justin
Justin
Fields
Fields
at
at
quarterback
quarterback,
with
with
the
the
team
team
that
that
they
they
have
have
being
being
very
very
beneficial.
beneficial.
And
And
I
I
see
see
the
the
ability
ability
to
to
get
get
quite
quite
a
a
bit
bit
for
for
him
him
in
in
a
a
trade.
trade.
Thoughts?
I I would agree with that. I think Brees is better than I think he's easily a top 10 back. He was the running back two in his second year.
And
And
that's not a bad take.
if he
Yeah.
doesn't get hurt, I think he's great. But in that running back two year, he got 95 targets and 76 catches. And I don't think he's getting that many catches with Justin Fields. And so that means you have to trust a lot more in the offense to get him touchdown opportunities. And like Micah said, the Jets offense is not an offense that
Yeah.
historically you'd want to put your money behind being in a lot of scoring opportunities. So then you have to get to the point where Brees is getting a lot of breakaway runs, and Brees has the talent to do that. He can score from 20, 30
He
yards
sure
out,
does.
but that's not something that you can bet on consistently. You need the
Not on
offense
a
to be
week to week
good.
basis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Other thoughts, gentlemen?
Yeah, actually, I agree with that. I think if you can get RB2 return from Brees, you should be selling. I think that if you could get probably, I think consensus, he kind of hovers between that 8 to 12 range. I think that I'm happy holding there. And I would be buying if you could get cheaper than that. I think that he is, again, just so extremely talented. I think maybe he's better a rebuild piece than a contending piece. Maybe if you're contending, he's a guy that you maybe try and chip up from. But yeah, I understand the take. I don't think it's a bad take at all.
Yeah, and even just talking to you today, Zach, and seeing where you valued him and giving me a number as to what you would not necessarily pay for him, but what you view his value at, I was like, yeah, this just doubles down for me on my want to sell him now.
Yeah, that's valid.
Where I'm at with Brees is I think the talent is for me, he's probably between 6 and 8 in the league. I just am not one buying into the Jets offense this year, but I think if you're moving for Brees Hall, you're not buying this year. And I think Zach kind of highlighted that by saying he's not a contending piece. If I was a contender, I'd be shipping him in a deal for sure. But man, like he's a free agent next year. He's going to be 24 years old, going on 25. That's kind of the highlight range
He's
where
very
you
young.
want to buy a running back
Yeah.
going into their second contract. I mean, if he hits the open market, let's look for impact of what Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, Saquon did going to a team. His Brees provides a spark. So I understand the selling high, but man, like Zach said, if he's going much cheaper than RB10 for me, I would buy him. And I think in our league in Sweaty Dynasty, he's not being sold as lower than RB10. He's being sold as RB4 and above.
And I don't think anybody's going to sell him as below RB10. I think me selling him right now, I'm selling him at the value that people see him at, which is exactly what Braden said, in between that 6 and 8 range.
I
Yeah,
think that's a
Braden.
great take. I actually agree. You move my needle a little bit. I can co-sign your sell. I can co-sign your sell.
There you go.
Jacob, don't watch this.
Hey, Braden, why are you buying Mr. Trey Benson?
Yeah, my bias, Trey Benson. I have been on the ship ever since Florida State. 22 years old. He had a 9.77 RAS score at the combine. I tend to look at what is the team speaking to us. Last year we saw as the rotational back, he didn't get a lot of use. We saw DeMarcado and Michael Carter kind of outpace him, especially earlier in the year. But both of those guys are no longer on the roster. There is no RB3, meaning that the guys who come in to be the RB3 and RB4 on this roster are competing for special teams, not for impactful snaps. So what does that tell me? You evaluate the room. James Conner was just as good last year as he always is. But man, that hamstring is lingering. And I look at the room and I say, if you're a contender or you're a middle of the pack team who, maybe you've got a playoff chance, I'm buying Trey Benson to impact my record late in the year. I just think about what is his ability. He's got breakaway speed. He ran in the 4.3s. He's 6 foot flat, 215. He is a good pass catcher. He's elusive. The concern was the injury coming out of college. He didn't get hurt last year. I think that's only a plus for him. I just feel like where Trey Benson could be in weeks 10 to 16 when your playoff games matter, Trey Benson could be a factor late in the season. So that's definitely my dynasty buy right now because you're buying Trey Benson outside of RB 15. And for me, when it comes to week 10 to 16, if we just took that 6 game sample size, I think he finishes in the top 15 in those 6 games.
It's a great buy. I mean, even just I remember you being slightly concerned about Benson. You're like, I'm starting to move my needle on him. I've been high on him forever. Then we watched the draft and we watched Arizona clearly say, we believe in Trey Benson as our future move. And it just, I remember talking about that in the room and feeling the energy of like, dude, Trey Benson's a crazy buy right now. And that's just so smart.
We also talk about what the team did. They focused their entire draft
Yeah.
on defense. They brought in Jonah Williams to be the left tackle, or the right tackle, my apologies, in free agency. Basically, what they're telling us is, hey, we know our coaching staff's on the hot seat. We got to give them a chance to keep their jobs in a very competitive division. I think this offense can put up points. I think they can move the sticks. And I think that's as simple as that. I think that Trey Benson could be taking James Conner's role by week 10.
Yeah, I don't love to hear that as a James Conner dynasty manager, but I mean he got pretty lucky last year. He's been injury prone his
Yeah.
whole career, and last year, actually outside of the week that Braden and I played, he exited in the third quarter of that game and I lost by
Mhm.
1.8. I remember all the details of that week, and I will for probably way too long. But yeah, I think it's a good buy. Unfortunately, I mean, I think it's a great buy if you have James Conner. Like I'd be look
Yes.
I've tried to get him before. Doesn't
I
work
was
very
the
well.
101 in this new league that we just drafted in. And at one point, very early on, I really thought about just drafting both of them back to back because we were in a snake draft. And I, I can't remember who was the moving piece that ended up deterring me from doing that, but I was hovering over the button. I agree. If you can get both of them, it's such a steal.
Yeah, because James Conner's still on a good contract. I
Yeah.
mean, they just signed him to a big money deal. I mean, if you look at any of the news out of there, he's a glue guy for them. Like he's one of the
Yeah.
leaders in the locker room that really holds the team together. And so I think they're not necessarily just going to move off of him just to move off of him.
Oh
The
no. Yeah.
the other point I'll add though is James Conner has Trey Benson behind him, but Trey Benson doesn't have a Trey Benson caliber guy behind him. So like James Conner has a guy behind him that could actually eat out some work at some point in the season. But if Trey Benson gets the starting job, there's nobody behind him that's gonna eat into him like Trey Benson would eat into James.
I think James Conner being a factor in the offense for this year only benefits Trey. I think that James is going to see the red zone work, and I think if you're buying Trey Benson, you're starting him. And I think that's kind of my point. Is this is a good dynasty buy? You're buying him at 22 years old. He made it through a full season healthy, and there were the concerns there. He's got the athletic build to be a workhorse running back. We talk about the snap percentage of workhorses see north of 70% snaps, and I definitely think he could be that. Yeah, I love buying Trey Benson right now.
So James Conner's 30 right now. So you're telling me as a dynasty buy, you're going into next year, James Conner's 31, probably looking at about the end, and Trey Benson, sorry, not Trey Harris. Trey Benson is 24 at that point. I mean, that's a great buy.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna take one more break and then we'll be back to finish out our buys. All right, our next dynasty buy, Chris Olave. Zach, take it away.
All right. A guy I'm really bullish on is Chris Olave right now. I think that this buy really comes from a place of being able to get a player cheaper than he will ever be again. I think if you look historically at his value, last offseason, he was being valued as a top 15 dynasty wide receiver pretty comfortably. I think that we all look at Chris Olave and understand that he is a top talent at the position. And those things are hard to come by. Those things are what you want to build your skill positions on in dynasty fantasy football. Now, the reason he is a 25 to 30 prospect or asset right now is because of two main concerns. Those two main concerns are one, the elephant in the room, the concussions. I think it's really funny to come on and talk about Chris Olave being a buy after we said not too long ago that Tua may be out of the league next year. I do not believe it to be that serious. I think that concussions are a part of football, and they always have been. I don't believe that we have seen someone retire due to concussions, especially not medically forced to retire due to concussions. At least to my memory, at least anything recent. Chris Borland comes to mind, but that was something that was a very personal choice. And Chris Olave has said that his personal choice, he is very adamant that it is not even a question. He will come back and he will be playing football for years to come. And another personal decision that I like to point out, this is a little more anecdotal. I think that his decision not to wear a Guardian cap, and Tua's as well, is very telling. It shows a lot of confidence, not only in his own ability to continue to play, but the organization's belief in his ability to continue to play and not allow the concussions to become a serious problem. I think that if it was going to be a serious problem, if we were at risk of losing Chris Olave to the NFL, I think these organizations would be telling these players, hey, you need to be wearing a Guardian cap, and we are not seeing that happen. The other reason we're getting a huge discount on Chris Olave right now is the offensive infrastructure in New Orleans. It's not one that we're super excited about right now. It's not one that looks great right now. But I think that Tyler Shuck is better than he's getting credit for. I think that you usually don't want to bet on second round quarterbacks, but one with the athleticism and the tape that Tyler Shuck has is one I'm okay betting with. It's another situation where I feel like you're getting a discount because of something I'm not concerned about. You're getting an age discount for someone with a COVID year and 3 lost seasons due to injuries that are not commonly thought of as being lingering injuries. That and Kellen Moore coming into the offense. Kellen Moore has done great things for wide receivers in 3 straight regimes. He lifted Keenan Allen when he was in LA to having a wonderful season. He had CeeDee Lamb put up, I believe he might have been in Dallas when he had his wide receiver 1 overall season. He goes and AJ Brown has a great season in a very crowded room as far as skill positions go. I think you're getting a very steep discount on Chris Olave. I think you're getting him cheaper now than you'll ever be able to again.
I think
I'm
he's
buying
going
Chris Olave because you don't buy a wide receiver 1 for the cheapest value as he's at. You talk about who is the main target volume in every passing attack. I think that all Ohio State wide receivers have hit. Essentially, all of the top guys from Ohio State have hit. Last year in our league, the sample size we have is that Chris Olave was being sold for Ryan Thomas Jr. plus. I'm just willing to buy that a 25-year-old wide receiver on a contract year with, I'm going to be honest, I'm a Tyler Shuck fan, 6'5", cannon arm, 4'5", reads the field well, doesn't take bad sacks, throws the ball away, just feels like a guy who Kellen Moore can extend the playbook with. I'm buying Chris Olave.
Yeah, it's I agree with a lot with what Zach's saying, and I think that there's a lot of value in that. If you believe in Tyler and you believe in the head coach and you believe in the new setup that the Saints are in, the direction that the Saints organization is going, then that you should absolutely buy Chris Olave as cheap as he will ever be. I do agree with that. For me, and maybe it's I don't know enough about Tyler. But I think that Kellen Moore and the Saints organization have a lot of uphill battle to get this team into a competitive shape. And so I just don't know that for me, with where we're at and sweaty, that I would be buying Chris Olave.
I would agree with that. One thing I will add is I think he's great for Spencer Rattler's value when Spencer inevitably starts. I digress. All right, Micah, you want to round us out with your buy?
Yeah, my buy is Bryce Young, but specifically just any Panthers players. I think Chuba's a great buy right now.
Jonathan Brooks.
This team, watching Bryce get benched for Andy Dalton and then having Bryce come back and sort of have a redemption arc last year, not only was proof to, I think, Bryce's potential for the future, but also proof of Canales' coaching and what he's doing over there in North Carolina. This is an organization that has been bad for a number of years, have really struggled at the head coach position, have really struggled all over. And to see them kind of have that comeback role that they played, pretty early on into finishing the year how they did, I think you are going to be able to buy Panthers players right now the cheapest they will probably ever be. That could be a hot take. I don't know. But it's just how I've been feeling watching them play, watching Bryce's confidence just skyrocket. So, yeah, if you can buy Bryce Young for cheap right now, I think it's a great buy. Cool.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
a great move.
disagree. I think that they are trending in the right direction. I think that there's nowhere you really look at their offense and think, that's a weakness. I think Chuba is a great running back. I think their wide receiver room, Tet really enables Jalen Coker and Leggett to kind of play roles more catered for who they are as players. And the offensive line, starting with the offensive line, dumping $100 million into that interior for a short quarterback who needs a stiff interior offensive line to be able to really read the field out. I think that they're doing it the right way. And there is absolutely a ceiling for this offense that we may see this year. It could be very exciting.
Sorry,
I
I
look
kind of
at the
dropped.
room and so sorry, Justin, go ahead.
You're good. I kind of dropped the ball in that last transition. I was looking up the final compensation for the Bryce Young trade because I saw it right after the draft and I wanted to revisit it just so I
Yeah,
knew what it was.
it's good to
So
revisit.
it was the 2023 number 9 overall pick. So it was Darnell Wright, who's their starting right tackle. He looks really good. He's gonna be a stud right tackle for a long time for them. Then Tyreek Stevenson, Caleb Williams. Then they got a punter this year. Doesn't really matter. And then Luther Burden for Bryce Young.
We will look back at that trade and just think, man, Ryan Poles did his thing. To
Did his
come,
thing, and the Panthers did the Panthers thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. That sets you
I,
back a long ways.
yeah.
Here's an interesting question. What does Bryce Young have to do to make that trade worth it?
He has to
Win a
be better
Super
than
Bowl.
Mahomes.
He's
Win
got
a
to win a
Super
Super
Bowl,
Bowl.
but for
Does
me,
one ring do it?
No.
it's make it to the playoffs. At that point, then I'll start to say, sure.
Whoa.
I mean, sure, guys. I think it would blow people's minds if the Carolina Panthers make it to the playoffs this year.
There's
All
the
I have to
Micah we
say is
know and
Micah's
love.
gonna Micah. Yeah, Micah's gonna Micah for sure. It's got to be a ring. I
Yeah.
think that this team has never won a Super Bowl, and it's got to be a ring. I think that's where you start. And I even think then Caleb Williams is probably going to get an opportunity to get one. So I don't know. The reason I'm buying into the offense, the play sequencing, I think that this is a coach that when Andy Dalton came in, they came in with Bryce at 3 yards an attempt and rose to about just under 9. And I think that when Bryce is enabled to do and read the field, attack the middle of the field, they succeed. And now they can use Leggett. They can use, don't forget about him, Adam Thielen, Jalen Coker, Ja'Tavion Sanders. They can use some of these guys to attack the middle of the field because a guy like Tedero McMillan opens out the exterior.
I think to me it's a little bit I like the Bryce Young take. I'm not sure about the Panthers as a whole, but I like the Bryce Young take simply because kind of like the same argument to me as Caleb Williams, where he has all these pieces around him and you're probably never going to be sure exactly which piece you want on the Panthers, but they all benefit Bryce Young.
I think one of the things to talk about too is win-loss record. I think it's very obvious to see that the fans are now bought into Bryce. The team is bought into Bryce, but man, they got to win some games with an expectation of Bryce electric. The fans are engaged. If they lose games early, Bryce isn't going to get benched, but the conversation opens up going into a good quarterback draft class coming in. I don't know if I'm paying top 10 quarterback value for Bryce, but I'm definitely paying top 16 pretty confidently. I feel good about the Panthers offense, but there is that caveat of they do have to win some games, and it's not a cakewalk in that division with the Falcons being intriguing. The Bucks have won in the division 2 years in a row, and let's not cat out Spencer Rattler led Saints.
Yeah. Just I find it interesting. I mean, I'd buy Tet. I'd buy Leggett easy. Tet, obviously, you can't really buy him cheap. But I'd buy Leggett. Would you not?
No. No, I'm not touching
Interesting.
Leggett. No, I mean I'd trade a
Here's
third for him.
here's a
I'd trade
question I
a
have
late
for
second.
you, Micah.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump over there. Bryce Young right now on Keep Trade Cut is the QB 20. There are five quarterbacks in front of him, and I'd like to know which of those you would like Bryce Young to be moved ahead of. I have Michael Penix, Trevor Lawrence, Cam Ward, Baker Mayfield, and JJ McCarthy.
The only guy who's not thrown throw in the NFL is JJ McCarthy, but I have a pretty confident feeling that he's going to be great in the NFL. Yeah, I think that right now for where he's at, that's exactly where he should be, is below those five guys.
I'd put
The
him
one
ahead of
thing that
Penix.
Bryce has is the rushing ability. We did see it at the end of the year. There were some plays on third down, utilize the legs in the red zone. That's the one thing that he has over a few of those guys. But man, yeah, you can't take him over any of those guys, especially not Trevor Lawrence.
Right, Trevor? But yeah, you guys were right to laugh at me for saying that the trade would be worth it. I guess what I mean was you start to relook at it, but it doesn't make it worth it to win a playoff game. But hey, Justin Herbert still hasn't won a playoff game, right?
Yeah, we're definitely going to debate who's better, Bryce Young or Justin Herbert. That's going to be an off-season debate we're going to have.
Huge debate, dude. Micah's gonna Micah.
Man. Yeah, that's definitely an
MGM,
all-time
I'm gonna
bad
get it
take.
tatted on me.
That trade does not. I mean, in my opinion, he has to become like maybe get two rings or at least go to two Super Bowls and win one.
I think he's got to win one.
Got to
If
win
you-
one.
if you
Yeah,
look
maybe
at-
go to a second one.
They've never done it. The city has never raised a banner. I think you got to win one. If you win one, everything else is worth it. I think if you ask Panthers fans, would you take 20 years of being at the bottom of the division for one banner? I think 99 out of 100 Panthers fans are taking that opportunity. And if it took what that trade consisted of to raise a banner, I think Panthers fans would take that.
Even if you look across the aisle and Caleb wins 3 in his career.
Yes, I
All
do.
right. All right. Well, I think that's probably where we'll end it. This episode went a little bit longer than our previous ones. Probably not gonna have a whole lot of people to make it all the way into the end. Shout out Jacob. Jacob always texts me and he says, "When is this podcast gonna be up?" It's like, bud, we haven't even recorded it yet. And then,
Group shout out to Jacob for sure.
Group shout out to Jacob.
yeah, but don't
Let's get
take
him on
Micah's
here
trade.
next week.
If you watch the whole thing, drop it in the comments. Drop your name and we'll shout you out next week.
And drop your social security number as well.
Credit
Yeah.
card, CVV, all that. It will get you a real good shout out.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for us. We'll be back next Tuesday.
Have a good
Adios.
weekend, boys.